From rocket jumping to bee hopping to air strafing and damage boosting, this is the story of TF2, its rise and its fall. Please sit back and enjoy as I go over the long and complex history of TF2, from its creation to the end of its development and updates. This is what happened to TF2. For our story, we need to go back in time, to a time before high-speed internet, to an age of dial-up. In 1996, a mod for Quake was released to the World Wide Web known as Team Fortress. The team working on the game was from Australia and called TF Software. At the time, it was comprised of only two people, Robin Walker and John Cook. The game was shared from word of mouth and friend to friend, and it was strictly a new multiplayer FPS game that was only PvP. It offered a variety of classes to choose from, each of them playing extremely differently from one another. In terms of graphics and appeal, Team Fortress looked like any other generic FPS from the 90s, with gritty realism, using the best textures available at the time. Seeing the potential of the mod and a sequel, Valve would hire Walker and Cook 2 years later in 1998. They would start working on an expansion pack for Half-Life, with a new game running under Valve's Gold Source engine. They planned to release the sequel to Team Fortress at the end of the year. However, due to design decision conflicts, they instead shifted focus and made a standalone version of the original Team Fortress called Team Fortress Classic, releasing it in 1999. The first view the world had on TF2 was at E3 1999, where Valve showcased the new technology they had been working on in the Gold engine. However, unlike the TF2 we know today, the version shown at 1999 E3 was not as cartoonish and more gritty and realistic, set in modern war times. The following year, in mid-2000, Valve announced that for the second time, TF2 would be delayed. The explanation for the delay was the switch from Gold engine to the newly created Source engine. For the next 6 years, no one heard anything about TF2. Walker was moved to project lead on Half-Life 2 Episode 1, and Cook would work on Valve's new platform, Steam. TF2 was labeled at this time as vaporware, something akin to Duke Nukem Forever, a game that was promised but would never be delivered, stuck in development hell. That was until 2004, before the release of Half-Life 2. Valve's marketing director, Doug Lombardi, confirmed to everyone that TF2 was indeed still in development and coming along nicely. And then 2 years later, the world saw its first taste of Team Fortress 2 at EA Summer Showcase 2006. The game had changed its aesthetics completely, going from a gritty Call of Duty clone to a more unique and magical cartoonish experience that is fondly remembered today. Later that year in July, Valve announced that TF2 would ship in the Orange Box as the online multiplayer component of the package. The beta release, which was given with the purchase of an ATI HD 2900 XT graphics card from Valve's Cyber Cafe program, came out on September 17, 2007. Later that year, on October 10, 2007, TF2 was officially released, standalone on PC and included in the Orange Box for consoles. Truly, the game had a lot to live up for, taking so long to release, and oh boy, did it deliver. From the Meet the series to the animated shorts, the promotional material, voice acting, gameplay, character personality, and visuals, TF2 was everything the community had waited for and more. It was received with open arms and almost overnight was a success, seeing tons of sales and hundreds of thousands of players worldwide. Valve continued releasing content, in 2012 having released new weapons, cosmetics, and unlockables for each class. Valve also released community tools for creators to make weapons, maps, and other things for the game, keeping the community alive and thriving with fresh content directly from Valve or trusted community creators. Shortly after, in 2010, Valve would release TF2 onto the OS X platform, making it officially Mac compatible, and adding a new item for Mac players called the earbuds. As you could guess, this was a cosmetic that looked like Apple earbuds, which were very popular at the time due to the success of the iPod. In June 23, 2011, Valve would make the decision to reduce the price of the Orange Box bundle and shift TF2 from a $20 standalone game to completely free to play. While at the time this decision seemed fairly innocuous as the game was getting older, no one could have predicted the rapid decline this decision would have in the future. In November 6, 2012, Valve released TF2 for Linux in its beta launch of Steam on the platform. This was Valve's first inclination to its fans that it had a strong focus on bringing gaming to Linux, something that was not very popular or seemingly business lucrative at the time or even today. In 2013, Valve proudly announced that as of June, over $10 million had been paid back to 400 community members that contributed directly to making content for the game. the Steam Workshop proving a success and increasing the replayability and longevity of the game's future. Truly, it seemed as if nothing could go wrong. After years of content released and balance changes, the community would get to vote on which character would get a rework, the Heavy or the Pyro. The reason for the rework and why it was a decision between Pyro and Heavy was the fact that Heavy as a class was outdated. He was strong enough to decimate average skilled players or newcomers, but his weaknesses were extremely exploitable and made him feel very punishing to play in a game that was going on 11 years old. Most veteran players ate the Heavy class alive. As far as Pyro is concerned, well, the class was just a programming nightmare. The flame effect and afterburn were extremely inconsistent and suffered from numerous bugs and hitbox issues. In 2016, the TF2 community made the collective decision that Pyro should be reworked, seemingly coming to the conclusion that Heavy was at least functional, while Pyro was a beta test as it gets. So in 2017, we got what would become TF2's last biggest update, Jungle Inferno. Jungle Inferno added new contracts, new cosmetics, new items for the Pyro, and Heavy getting his own second banana, with nerfs to Spy across the board, something the community either sighed in relief because of or raised pitchforks over. Everything was seeming to be doing okay for TF2, however, internally Valve was shifting from being a game company to being a tech company, not focusing on games, but rather the technology used to play them, moving on from the roots and going into the territory of business, the Steam platform, virtual reality, and Linux gaming. Honestly, if all of that was what was happening to TF2 might still get occasionally big updates. Unfortunately, TF2 was also about to come under siege, not internally, but externally as well. Cheaters were starting to run rampant, hackers were invading in giant waves. Some started as protests against the changes made in Jungle Inferno, while others were just merely for the sake of pure malicious intent to kill off TF2 once and for all. This would continue for years as Valve not only downsized the TF2 team, but had no real way to stop the massive amounts of free accounts being made and the rampant sharing of peer-to-peer cheats on websites like mpgh.net. Valve would go silent as the community became more and more restless and getting more frustrated as more players left the game. Things were going down quickly, but was not into a full nosedive at this point yet. The community had hoped it would be salvaged. That was until 2020. 3 years later, TF2 would take the heaviest blow, not only receiving no major update after 3 years of waiting, but also having its source code leak onto the internet. This meaning that not only could cheats be made more easily, but would become even harder to circumvent, no matter the changes implemented to the game. Not only did this lead to even more cheaters and bot accounts, but also the fear of remote code execution attacks to players' PCs. For those unfamiliar, RCE is the process of running programs on someone else's computer using a game or other program as a bridge between the devices. The game was falling even faster now, climbing down Steam's top 100 chart. Community and content creators moving on to other games like Overwatch or stopping creation altogether. Valve, in their infinite wisdom, decided the best course of action would be to restrict the free-to-play accounts. Of course, this did nothing but hinder actual new players and did nothing to stop the real problem, drawing the ire of the community once again. Next year in 2021, Valve would try and make additional changes to help discourage the use of bots. But at this point, it was too late. The damage had been done. TF2 was no longer the fun, casual hero shooter with funny hats. It was that old abandoned game from 2007 with inactive devs, no updates, and a bot problem. The reputation for the game tanked, and so did the player base. 2022 saw the rise of YouTubers like SquimJim band together to protest to Valve their grievances, both over the lack of updates to the game itself, but also to the inactivity on the bot problem in general. This movement was coined #SaveTF2. The goal was for all TF2 players to send letters to Valve and all media that they could find to report the issues until some type of response was given. At first, these efforts seemed to be in vain, until July of 2022, when Valve slowly started releasing waves of maintenance updates into TF2 to restrict bot production and also improve the vote kicking system in place to help players kick the bots as quickly and efficiently as possible. Valve took down the servers in August of that year for 5 minutes, and in those 5 minutes, hundreds of bans were given out instantly to known bot accounts. But not only to the bot accounts, but to the owners of the bots themselves, finally putting a huge dent into the morale of the cheaters. This was a welcome change of pace, and the community was happy to see that Valve had finally listened. #SaveTF2 had worked. Unfortunately, it was too late. The game was nowhere near its peak anymore. Content creators did not come back from hiatus or from the games they moved on to. While TF2 may seem to be doing well on the Steam charts, sitting close to 90k players at the moment of this video with a 300k peak today, it would be safe to assume that at least 1/10 of those accounts are bots, if not more than 1/10. That being the case, the content creators, streamers, and the competitive scene being completely forgotten, it's safe to say that TF2 has lost all exposure to the mainstream and will not see any future growth, marking the end of its major patch and changes. The game, for all intents and purposes, being on long-term maintenance. Thank you for watching till the end. My name is Nate. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support me, please leave a comment and share the video. Sharing the video is free and it's the best way to grow the channel. I appreciate you all. Until the next video.